Hello friends, in this video we will discuss the tectonic shifts in the European labor market. Why has a wave of mass layoffs hit Poland, which legendary factories are closing after half a century of operation, and how is the China Shock 2.0 destroying jobs in the European Union? Watch the video until the end to understand what Ukrainians, among others, should prepare for. Please leave a like to support aerodynamics, to support the working class. Friends, click the bell and subscribe. It only takes 2 seconds to do these simple actions so you don't miss new videos. By the way, just a reminder that the best money transfer service is TransferGo. The link is in the description. Send money to your family and loved ones. Support them if you can. Now, let's get down to business. Anatomy of the China Shock 2.0. Let's start with the macroeconomic facade, which has recently started to crack at the seams. The Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers of Poland, together with the Center for Eastern Studies, have come out with a report. Any European commissioner would get a twitch in their right eye and their hair would stand on end after reading it. It's the summer of 26 and experts say the Polish economy has missed out on 11.4 billion euros of added value. And if you look at the scale of the entire EU, the number becomes astronomical, 87 billion euros in net losses. So where did these Ukrainians go? Be sure to write in the comments, they were stolen by Ukrainians, who else? There you go. These billions seriously weren't stolen. They were simply earned by others. And the name of these others is the People's Republic of China. The authors of the report directly call what's happening the China Shock 2.0. Maybe some of you remember the first Chinese shock at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s when China flooded the world with cheap slippers, toys, and dirt cheap textiles. Forget it, that was nothing. Today, Beijing is playing big. Why should we sell some cheap plastic stuff when we can produce and export high-tech products with high added value? Chinese comrades did their homework on a massive scale, and thanks to strong government subsidies, clear planning, and the massive scale of production, they've entered the European market with products that are knocking out local manufacturers. It'd be different if we were talking about smartphones. By the way, I have 2 phones. Let me know how many you have. I have an old iPhone 14 and a Poco. Sure, it would be one thing if this were just about smartphones, but now the core of European industry is under attack. Automobile manufacturing, heavy machinery, electronics production, battery manufacturing, household appliances, and even the steel industry. European capital has found itself in an interesting position. Local companies are selling less, being forced to cut production and losing orders. Why? Because the Chinese equivalent is cheaper, and in terms of quality, it is usually just as good. In Poland alone, up to 45,000 industrial jobs are at risk of being eliminated. If you think these are just abstract numbers from some reports that nobody has read, let's come down to earth and see what this macroeconomic steamroller looks like in practice. Now we're heading to sunny Poland. And let's probably start with the city of Nowy Sącz. It's in the south of Poland. By the way, to help the video get promoted, write in the comments which city you're watching from. Where are you, Dennis? Watching from Norway, Nowy Sącz. And you can also write, hey Baldy, why aren't you at the front? Or why aren't you at the beach? So anyway, Nowy Sącz. Right now, a classic drama is unfolding, the decline of what was once a powerful industrial giant. This is the Novomag mining equipment factory in Nowy Sącz. Now, it's part of the Farmer Group, which is owned by Grenevia SA. They've ceased operations. The plant, which had been operating continuously for exactly half a century since 1976, is now being completely shut down. The entire workforce, which is 200 highly qualified specialists, is being laid off as part of mass layoffs. But there was a time when things were completely different, right? At the height of its prosperity, this state enterprise employed 1,100 people. It was the region's flagship, set to build a new workshop and its own rail spur. In 1992, of course, the plant was efficiently privatized, as often happens, turning it into a joint stock company, and then it was included in a large holding. And now it's 2026, the management of Grenevia SA conducted a thorough analysis and sent out pink slips to the workers. The reasons for the closure were formulated with the usual delightful corporate cynicism. Years of declining orders from Polish mines, which themselves are barely surviving. The difficult financial situation of mining companies, changes in the energy market due to this green transition. Who's to blame? The Green Deal. And the loss of the Eastern export market. Yes, that's part of it too. Someone in the comments will definitely write, well, you yourselves don't want to be friends with Russia. It's your own fault. But was it even possible to act differently? Trade with a state committing direct military aggression against its neighbor? What, do that? As if nothing had happened, for God's sake. From a political, moral, and legal point of view, for Europe, for Poland, the answer was obvious. No way. Sanctions and breaking economic ties. This is a direct and unavoidable response to a blatant violation of international law. Yes, there is another side to this coin. Because when a huge familiar market closes, business faces a harsh reality. Yes, the machines are running, the products are being made, but they're just going into storage. There's hardly anyone to sell them to. It's really impossible to find a replacement for such a large-scale consumer all at once. Well, Europe took a principled, necessary step, but this forced break in ties sometimes hit the producers themselves hard financially. Some adapted and some didn't. But in this particular case, it was the workers of closing factories like Novomag who ultimately paid the price for geopolitical principles. The chairman of the board of FAMUR, Pan Mariusz Sosnej, sorry if I got the last name wrong, tries to put a good face on it and says, we're not leaving the mining business, we're optimizing processes, concentrating competencies, and increasing efficiency. Well, in short, he just read whatever ChatGPT suggested to him. Production is being moved to the neighboring city of Gorlice, to the Glinik plant, which has a bigger base. But here's the catch. At this efficient plant, some workers are also being laid off. They're addressing the industry's crisis by just cutting costs, hurting real people. All this, management claims, is done in dialogue with the public. How else could it be? I don't think this dialogue has made it any easier for the workers to breathe, but that's the reality. Next we have another interesting article in the Polish press, a new layoff map, from metal workers to IT specialists. Do you think only miners and machine builders are having problems? No, that's not the case at all. The Polish labor market in July 2026 is turbulent in many directions. The economic situation is carefully but steadily pushing people onto the job market in various industries. Let's take a look at the Wolkonia metallurgical plant at Walkownia Metali Dziedzice. This is the city of Czechowice-Dziedzice, not far away, basically, it's Silesia. Actually, no, wait, they say they're from the Beskid area, not from Silesia. Sosnowiec and Rybnik are Silesia, but they're from under Beskidzie. Well, okay. This rolling mill had been operating for 130 years. It survived 2 world wars, a bunch of crises, but it couldn't survive the modern European economic reality. So, 200 people will be laid off, almost half of the entire workforce. That's 163 workers and 37 administrators. Well, damn, that's cool, guys. Yeah, really, by the way, I remember when I worked in Poland, I liked it. We had 45 workers there and 20 people sitting in the office. So it's also good here. 163 workers and 37 administrators, so that's 1 administrator for every 3 workers. Press Secretary Anna Janocha says it straight. The reasons are purely economic. It's not about the quality of people's work, it's just that the market has changed. If we read between the lines, maintaining such production in Europe with its current energy and raw material prices is becoming unprofitable. It's easier to shut down or cut everything to a minimum. Next, what about the service sector and the innovative economy, which, according to liberal economists, was supposed to save everyone after the factory's demise? Things aren't much better there. Let's just take a quick look at the recent layoff map. Finance. A major velo bank, after acquiring the retail part of the Handloa network, immediately started mass layoffs. And why pay 2 sets of employees when you can optimize costs? Tell me, please. Next, media. The publishing house Ringier Axel Springer Polska, which owns the Onet portal, Fact newspaper, and Newsweek, cut about 1/8 of its staff. That means every 8th person was let go. Journalists also turned out to be too expensive for the new reality. Furniture. The famous IKEA industry plant in Galinev eliminated 160 jobs, a third of the entire factory. People started buying less furniture because their spare money goes to paying utility bills and food. At least that's what the Polish press writes. And in general, food service, restaurant chains, Nordfood, Mikala Solowowa. I don't know who that is. Okay, never mind. Anyway, the Nordfood restaurant chain is cutting staff after the court refused to declare it bankrupt. Debts are growing, customers are cutting back. IT and business services. In Krakow, almost 1,300 people in the technology and business services sector lost their jobs in the first quarter of the year. The director of the Municipal Labor Office, Mr. Adam Burnett, made a statement that was brilliant in its frankness. He said, "The high level of salaries," I'll quote, "contributes to companies' decisions to optimize." Let me translate that into plain language for those who didn't get it, friends. You guys want a decent European salary? 2 or better yet, 3,000 euros. And since that's the case, it's more profitable for corporations to fire you, automate the process, or move the office to where people are willing to work for less money. Look, the Nordea Corporation has already laid off 100 IT specialists in Łódź and Gdańsk. So, friends, even the sacred cow of digitalization couldn't withstand the harsh demand to cut costs. Well, basically, it's a capitalist dead end. If you put all these pieces of the mosaic together, the picture isn't exactly pastoral. We are facing a classic systemic crisis of overproduction and competition, where the European manufacturer finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place. On one side, there's the powerful Chinese manufacturer, who thanks to scale produces goods that are cheaper and more technologically advanced. On the other side, there are internal European problems. Huge energy prices, loss of markets due to geopolitical force majeure, let's call it that, a decline in the purchasing power of the local population, and the insatiable appetite of large financial groups that demand profit growth at any cost. That's the reality. Leave your comments, friends. I read them all, even the negative ones. Go ahead and write. "Dennis, you know nothing about economics. Actually, I'm just reading an article." Well, whatever, honestly, who cares? It doesn't matter to you what you write. Well, to some haters anyway. Share in the comments if you've experienced layoffs. Is your job stable? Also, what field do you work in? I'm not asking for the name of the restaurant or the company. I'm not planning to come work for you just yet. How is big business responding to this? Let's get back to the topic, the only available way to optimize. And optimization within market logic always means the same thing, closing unprofitable factories. It doesn't even matter if you have a 50-year history there. So what? So what now? Well, cuts to social programs and of course mass layoffs. Can't do without them. Government officials and experts timidly mention in their reports the need to protect the market, control imports, and support domestic production. Nice words. But how exactly are they planning to do that? Given the deep global interconnectedness we've already talked about, even Europe itself depends on Chinese rare earth metals, components, and batteries. The introduction of protective tariffs will only spur inflation within the EU, making goods even more expensive for the end consumer. Well, what can I say? The market, as they say, has decided, but it decided in favor of those who have more resources, cheaper energy, and more efficient planning. And the Polish working class is left to watch as rolling mills, metal plants, and Novomag shut down, and to wonder which industry will be next in line. And of course, friends, I can't help but say a few words about this echo of aerodromization and how it will affect Ukrainians in Poland. Let's take off our rose-colored glasses and look at how this wave of layoffs will hit the huge number of Ukrainian citizens for whom Poland has become a second home in recent years. No jokes, no exaggeration, and their main place of employment. Here, unfortunately, the laws of economics will also kick in harshly and bluntly. I don't want to scare anyone. I'm just... Friends, I always urge you to look for a second option because you never know what might happen, so you should have a plan B. Plan B. Plan B. When large enterprises lay off native Polish workers, these people don't just disappear into thin air. They go onto the job market. And where do they go? Yes, sometimes they step down a level, applying for jobs in the service sector, logistics, warehouses, and trade, that is, in areas where traditionally tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians work. And in conditions of strict austerity, the Polish employer, all other things being equal, will choose a local citizen. Unless, of course, he falls in love with this Ukrainian man or woman. But why would he? To avoid extra bureaucracy processing some documents for you. You have an Eastern European accent, right? Moreover, the crisis in the IT and business services sector in Krakow and Gdańsk directly affects skilled Ukrainian migrants. Young specialists who went to work for international companies are the first to be laid off, since they are often on temporary contracts. In the end, we get a classic domino effect. The shutdown of heavy industry reduces purchasing power within the country. With less money circulating, furniture factories, restaurants, and delivery services get fewer orders, leading to staff cuts. Of course, this won't happen all at once, not in a month, not even in a year, because the economy is just too huge. But I believe and I hope that I'm wrong. Nevertheless, economists say that Ukrainian workers in Poland will feel this icy wind of cost-cutting, facing a drop in real incomes, a shortage of available jobs, and growing competition for every position. Economic crises are international, and it's those who create added value with their own hands who have to pay for some global mistakes. Yes, that is the working class. That's how it is, friends. Think and analyze. And I would strongly advise not to believe in fairy tales about eternal prosperity under a completely unregulated free market. That's the political education we ended up with. If you've watched up to this point, right, Dennis, keep watching from the city of Barcelona, from the city of Bari, Brindisi, wherever you're watching from, Bologna, maybe Bergamo. There are quite a lot of Italian cities that start with the letter B. Thank you for your attention. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Greetings to the working class, truck drivers, turners, and eyebrow mechanics. Big hello to everyone.